Bear down, Chicago Bears. Today we're going to ask the question, we're going to answer the question, will the Bears have a top five defense? And are they looking to improve in the 2025 draft instead of the 2024 draft? Now, if you like this type of content, make sure that you hit the like button, subscribe button, the bell to be notified. And we're going to kick this off with Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat has been a lightning rod. He's been an incredible get for the Chicago Bears and really changed the trajectory of this team in a very appreciable way. We didn't see it when he first got in. It took a few games for him to get going. Once he got going, this team started to look like an incredible team. So again, we're going to ask this question: are the Bears going to be a top five defense next season? Now, let's say there's a couple of pieces that are going to give you a little pause. There's a couple of pieces that don't exactly fit perfectly at this point, but I think that by virtue of being a better defense, by having a little more time to work together, by having a little more, as they would call it, seasoning, if you will, that this Bears team is going to be vastly superior to what we've seen before. And we do lead off the changes that happened when Montez Sweat showed up. So, of course, as we know, Montez Sweat was acquired in a trade with the Washington Commanders, and he had signed a 4-year contract extension right after that. So we know that he's going to be our guy for at least, let's say, the next 3 years. Probably going to be a team option to decline at 3. So the Bears' defensive turnaround was sparked by Sweat. Since he joined the Bears in Week 9, the defense ranked 5th in total defense, 5th in pass defense, 9th in scoring defense, and is tied for 2nd in total takeaways at 11. Those are the stats of a top 5 defense. Okay. Ian Rappaport, in fact, last season threw out that the Bears pass rusher Montez Sweat had a team high 3.5 sacks in 5 games since joining the Bears, while helping the Bears become a top 5 defense during that period of time. Now, the question is, can this continue? Do we have the pieces in place? Well, let's start with what's missing from the team, and we have to consider whether or not these are upgrades or not. Number one, Justin Jones being replaced by Gervon Dexter. Now, the question to that is, as a 3 technique, is Gervon Dexter an improvement over Justin Jones? And the early answer to that is probably not. However, he should have that second-year leap in which he could at least be comparable. I want to say he had a really good first season. So as long as he pans out, then this defensive line is going to stand pat. And we've seen a lot of videos coming out just recently of DeMarcus Walker putting in a lot of work. I think DeMarcus Walker really wants to prove himself. We just saw the drafting of Austin Booker as an effective edge rusher that can't be stopped. People cannot stop him. He is a super speed rusher. So we've got Gervon Dexter, unproven, but we think he's a pretty good guy. We've got Austin Booker, who is a little undersized, but he is lightning fast. This guy is a monster coming off of the edge. Now, the part to it that matters most probably is that Austin Booker will be shifted to the left side of the line and will spell Montez Sweat so that Montez Sweat can kind of get him up to speed and train him. And, there'll be a little bit of that. But the other thing is the possibility exists that Yannick Ngakoue could be brought back in. And I want to say that once Montez Sweat was obtained, that Yannick Ngakoue started to look better. He started to look pretty good. And we're 2 days away, by the way, from rookie mini camp. So we'll get an idea of what some of these guys like Austin Booker look like in this mini camp. And if there's anybody who's capable of making the 53-man roster, which we are going to predict before the end of this program today. So if you like this type of content, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe button. The most important thing that you can do to support me and help me out, besides becoming a member of the channel, is hitting that like and subscribe button, because it helps me out tremendously, continues to push me in the algorithm, and leave a comment on the video down below once it's done. So that helps a lot. But the important thing, where did we end up last season? And is there any reason to consider that perhaps the Bears might be a really, really good team. Well, number one, rushing yards allowed per game, 86.4. The Bears had the number one rushing defense in the league based on total yards allowed at 1,468. They ranked second in rushing touchdowns allowed with 8, the second fewest in the NFL, and fourth in yards per carry at 3.8. So at this point, we seem to have an elite rushing defense. We ended up ranking first, maybe second or third overall when you take all of statistics that go into these kind of rankings into consideration. However, the other thing was I think we ranked 25th in passing. So we'll have to see how that goes. I do want to say that I think with a better pass rush, of course, this obviously fixes some of the things, and I do think that the pass rush will be improved. Both Montez Sweat, I think, will have a better season because now he's going to be more familiar with the system, more familiar with the calls. He'll be a little bit more able to just do what he needs to do. Gervon Dexter will get a little bit improved. By the way, we should point out that Andrew Billings also still very young, and I think that he's going to continue to improve. At least I hope he's going to continue to improve. Wasn't in a contract year, so it didn't really matter. Then we have DeMarcus Walker, who's putting in the work. We're seeing the work being put in. Is it going to translate on the field? And fingers crossed, we hope so. Bringing in Austin Booker certainly was a help. Dominique Robinson, probably not much of a help. Yannick Ngakoue still on the radar. So, this team probably a little better than last season. Fingers crossed. Now, if that's the case, if the pass rush is just a little bit more precise and a little bit better, then that gives a little less time to throw the ball. If you can give a little less time to throw the ball, then you're going to create a better defensive secondary because you won't be able to just kind of stand in the pocket and make the throws. Guys, I can't stress enough how easy it was for Jordan Love to just pick the Bears apart at the end of last season because he wasn't getting pressured. And, are we better? Can we start to get a little bit of pressure? And if we can, then this becomes an entirely different scenario. The other thing is number 22 defense. They tied with San Francisco for a league high in interceptions and tied for fifth in total takeaways at 28. So 22 interceptions, 6 fumble recoveries. Tremaine Edmonds, Jalen Johnson, and Tyreek Stevenson all tied for a team high 4 interceptions. It marks career highs for Edmonds and Johnson, who each also had their first career picks in pick sixes in 2023. It was also the first time since 2010 that the Bears had 3 players with 4+ interceptions. Of the 24 players in the NFL who recorded 4 more interceptions this season, Edmonds is one of only 3 linebackers. TJ Edwards also recorded 3 picks, and Kyler Gordon had a pair. And then we have the Pro Football Focus grade of 90.8 on Jalen Johnson. That was a 33 passer rating and a 195 receiving yards against. In his 4th season, he earned Pro Bowl and second team All-Pro honors. Now, he had a higher rating than Sauce Gardner. However, Sauce Gardner was the consensus number 1 guy according to Pro Football Focus. I don't think they know what they're talking about, but a good guy. Now, the important pieces here. We've got an elite player. We've got an up and coming Tyreek Stevenson. Secondary, are we better with Kevin Byard versus Eddie Jackson? That's going to be a question. And if that question can be answered positively, and let's just face some facts here. When we watched the game tape last year, when you watch Eddie Jackson, he just really was not the same player that he had been before. And if that's the case, then how do we get better? How do we improve? Well, we bring in Kevin Byard. And does Kevin Byard have what we're looking for in him to make those kinds of plays? And, if the answer to that is yes, then we're going to be, this is going to be a great team. Like, guys, I just want to say that this is going to be a great team if these pieces come together. Again, Kevin Byard, if he is as good or better than Eddie Jackson, then we're going to be better. If we can get Gervon Dexter and DeMarcus Walker to step up just a little bit better, and Andrew Billings continues to I mean, guys, this is the number 1 rushing defense. So if they continue to dominate the rushing game and they can start to get a semblance of a pass rush going to complement Montez Sweat's abilities, then this team suddenly looks like giant killers. I mean, that really is the case. And you have to consider Jack Sanborn, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards. Now, let me just say, I love Tremaine Edmonds. I like his passion, but I know that he's missed a few tackles at the beginning of the season. I know TJ Edwards missed a few tackles at the beginning of the season. Now, of course, they got it together, but I hope that they're ready to perform. We should know, by the way, around May 22nd or May 15th, I think, maybe May 15th, 7 p.m. Central Time. I think we're going to get we're going to get the schedule. So we're about 7 days away from getting the schedule, and we'll know exactly what it looks like going into 2024. And another mention, in 2 days on May the 10th, rookie mini camp starts. So, we'll have some ideas about some of these pieces and how they kind of fit together overall on this potential top five defense. Now, there's a couple statistics that we should kind of look at on defense, and maybe this gives us a better gauge of what is this team really going to look like, right? Well, on the Chicago defense, they were 19th in points per game at 22.3. Now, that included those first 4 games. We can't get out of those first 4 games. They still count. So if this is the case, and by the way, in the last 13 games of the season, we were the number 6 scoring defense. So there's a big difference between those first 4 games and how many points were given up in those first 4 games and how that affected this overall average, and those last 13 games. Those last 13 games, possibly a testament of what it's going to look like with Montez Sweat and going forward. So 22.3 points per game. If you just consider that maybe, just maybe, we're going to be a little better than this total here, because based on the end of the season, then I think we're going to be all right. Also consider 324 yards a game. That was good for 12th in the league. So it's just outside of the top 10. Now, if we make a leap and we get to, it was 272 points, by the way, 272 yards a game after the first 4 games. So again, what we'd be looking at right there is a top 5 defense. So we're kind of right there. Opponents points per play, 3.366, which is number 23. Opponents yards per play, 5.3. That was good for 18th. Now, rushing defense, we were fantastic on rushing defense, but the passing defense we were 25th on, which is why these yards per play look so perplexing for this team. Now, it's good enough for 18th, but that's the bottom half of the league. So, there is a question here. Jalen Johnson, Tyreek Stevenson, Jaquan Brisker, Kevin Byard, can these guys come together, and can they stall the wide receivers, and can our linebackers pick up tight ends well enough and get into coverage enough to give this line a chance to get to the quarterback? If they can make this happen, if they can do better than what they were doing, then this could be vastly improved too. It doesn't need to be number 1. It just needs to be top 10-ish for us to feel really good. Third down percentage right here, very bad. Third down percentage, we ranked 29th in the league. We gave up a lot when it mattered, and that's concerning. So the question is, can we get better at third down conversion percentage, stopping these guys on third down? And I can't tell you how many times I watched them just with frustration as what I know is a good defense, but this is here's the part that matters, right? Third down and any sort of long situation is an obvious passing down. Third and short, it's easy to pass on this team. Again, the number 25 overall coverage in the league, we were not very good. And the fact that we're not very good at that leads to a high rate of third down conversions. And hopefully we get better at that. That stands out. That stands out. There's another thing that stands out we'll get to in just a second. Fourth down conversion, we were number 4 in the league at stopping the fourth down conversions. However, right here, opponents' red zone scoring percentage of touchdowns, 68% of the time the Bears gave up touchdowns. Now, what does that mean to us? That means it's going to be very difficult. This if we don't improve red zone defense dramatically, this is going to be another 22, then none of this works. So we're going to have to find stops in the red zone. I want to say that Eric Washington, I've got to think, is going to be a better option than no defensive coordinator, even though Matt Eberflus is still going to be calling the plays. I think people like the fact that he's calling the plays, But again, I would like to see, I hope Eric Washington steps in and really starts to hone in on some of these mistakes. And then the opponent's touchdowns per game was 2.6, which is good for 19th in the league. We gave up touchdowns. We didn't give up field goals. If we learn to give up field goals instead of touchdowns, this thing changes dramatically. So with a little focus where it really, really matters, assuming that we get just a little better, just a little better, then you cut down on the points per game. You cut down on their points per play. You cut down on third down conversions, and you cut down on red zone. You cut down on that just a little bit. Then guess what? This is suddenly a top 5 defense. Why? Because opponents' rush play percentage, 37%, good for third in the league because people did not like running on them. Opponents' yards per rush, 3.8, good for fourth in the league. Rushes per game, 22.8, good for second because teams didn't like it. It was easier to pass, by the way. So let's also take that into consideration. 86.4 yards rushing per game. We did stop the rush and only 0.58 touchdowns total, good for second in the league. Now, this is where it falls apart, and this is where we hope that this gets a lot better. So, number one, the pass play percentage, 62.5, 30th in the league. We sucked. Completion percentage, 66.5, good for 24th. That's not a bad number. That really is 66.5. If we can just if Caleb Williams is as good at advertising and we can do 70 versus their 66, then we're going to be the better team. Because remember, over here, our passing statistics on offense were only 62.5% versus 66.4. So lower half of the league. But again, if we just a little bit more, and that's what this is. This is a game of inches. We know that, but with just a little bit more, then this team is on a different level. It starts with the pass rush, obviously, but opponents' yards per game per pass, we're actually pretty good at that. It was 13. It was in the top half of the league. Opponents' passes per game, 36.3. That's in the bottom half of the league. Opponents like to throw the ball. Passing yards per game was 25th in the league. Again, lower half of the league. We got to work on that. However, interceptions, the number one team in interceptions, tied with San Francisco, yes, but number one team in interceptions. By the way, interceptions thrown for the Bears last year, we were 26th in the league, and we were sacked as 26th in the league. And our sack percentage, and this is where the rubber meets the road, guys. This is pressure right here. Our pressure, non-existent for a lot of this. 4.64% sack percentage, good for 32nd and dead last in the league. So there are pieces to this pass rush that we've got to fix. Specifically, let's move this over to the side here. We got to fix this 32nd in the league. We've got to fix the opposing passes per game. We got to make them more inclined to keep it out of the air. And that, even with interceptions being number one, like that's your detriment, right? That's the detriment. God damn it. That's the deterrent to prevent you from doing it because you know that the ball's going to get intercepted, but it was still worth it for these teams to make these moves. Pass play percentage, you got to do better. Completion percentage, you got to do way better. And I want to say that I think it's the short passing game that really has been a bane to the Bears because that longer passing game, when you start to get the cornerbacks involved, quarterback rating on Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson, pretty good. When it comes to safeties, when it comes to linebackers, way better. So we shall see how this all carries over. Now, again, top 5 defense. A Chicago defense here, kicking statistics, number 2, field goal conversion percentage. So we were one of the best at stopping the field goals. Also, turnovers. We were number 12 in total turnovers per game. We were number 5 in total takeaways. We sucked at giveaways, but we were opponents' interceptions. We were still number 1 there. Penalties. This is where it gets really bad. Now, here is where discipline. Are we a more disciplined team becomes the question because the opponent's penalties per play, 0.03, good for 32nd in the league. So a penalty, we were not giving up penalties. We were committing penalties. We were the worst team in one of the worst teams in penalties overall, 18, 19, 23, 25. And then over here, 32nd, 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 and 31st. So, and then Chicago defense opponent's top percentage, 46.3. We ranked 3rd. That's pretty good. So there's some there's some real possibility here. There's some real possibility that the Bears are on the verge and on the cusp. So discipline, discipline, and discipline are the three things that the Bears appear to need to work on. Well, the discipline, discipline, and a goddamn pass rush. If we do it, if we just have a nice pass rush, then a lot of this stuff is going to change. So hopefully we get that worked out. Broski Bear says Yannick is a waste of time, and Calais is old but still productive if he's splitting reps. Walker Campbell splitting time at the other DE spots the best we can do this season. So I don't know that look, I know people throw out we can go get Calais Campbell. So okay, but Yannick Ngakoue again 8.5 sacks over the course of every season of his career until he got into the worst defense in the league to start the season. Look, we had a great season when it comes down to rushing, but we weren't a great passing team, and Yannick Ngakoue didn't have any help. And when he got help, by the way, he was actually doing a decent job, and we watched it over and over again. He had 3 sacks after Montez Sweat got here. He was coming along before he got sidelined with it with an injury that took him out for the season. I believe it was ACL, something like that. I don't think that's true. I think that he was actually a very good guy who just, look, you can't be the only guy on that team. Montez Sweat had 6 sacks, I want to say. Montez Sweat should have had 12 sacks. If anybody else commanded double team, if anybody else allowed him to get free, if Justin Jones would have been worth let's put it this way. If you have Montez Sweat and you don't have Justin Jones commanding a double team at the defensive tackle position, then Montez Sweat gets the double team. He gets the chip. He gets everything put against him, and then Justin Jones can't beat you. Andrew Billing can't beat you. DeMarcus Walker can't beat you, or at least they can beat you, but they can't beat you in timing. Montez Sweat is the quick guy off the edge, but you double him up, and now the rest of the team, you have time to throw the ball. If you can disrupt that pattern and you can force people, if Gervon Dexter can just get a little bit better, if Gervon Dexter can start to make people pay attention, and you have to double team Gervon Dexter or he's just going to blow through the middle of this line. If you can do that, if you can get that one guy, then that changes the complexity of what Montez Sweat can do, because you can't chip him, you can't double team him anymore. You have to reserve somebody who's looking for the man coming in, and that's when they become prone to making mistakes. And then take into account, again, I encourage you to go to Twitter, to just go follow DeMarcus Walker on Twitter and watch what he's doing. This guy is tuned in. He is this guy is doing like some 4 horse, like Chicago Bears for life, baby. He's posting videos. Broski Bear disagrees, says, I disagree. Yannick was a huge disappointment last season for whatever reason. Well, yeah, I agree with that. But we had plenty of people who didn't produce last season, and they're still on the team. So just because he didn't produce for one season doesn't mean there wasn't some kind of mitigating circumstance. And the mitigating circumstance here was the fact that although he's a good pass rusher, he didn't have to be accounted for dramatically because there was no Montez Sweat. He could be double teamed, so he can't do anything. And he had 2 instead of 3. Okay, so but in that period of time, and he wasn't there for very long. How many quarterback pressures did he have after that as well? Because I'm telling you right now, this was a better team. Even DeMarcus Walker stepped up. So these guys played better than you want to recognize or you want to realize when the dynamic changed. You can bitch about, well, Yannick Ngakoue didn't get any touchdowns. He didn't get any interceptions. He didn't sack anybody in the first 4 games. Well, he's the guy that was getting double teamed because he was the only good player on that line worthy of a double team. When Montez Sweat got here, it changed the dynamic, right? And again, Yannick, if he was injured for most of the year, or if he was stuck in that spot over the year because this was the worst passing team in the league, that makes sense, right? You can't just. And here's the other part. Like I'm defending Yannick Ngakoue not because I like Yannick Ngakoue more than any other guy out there that's available. He's familiar with the play calls. He can enter himself back into this system very simply, and if we wait long enough, he'll be available at a rookie minimum, or not a rookie minimum, but at a veteran minimum deal. He might just take 1 million or 2 million to play the game, and that might be the steal of the century. And that's better than having to go out and chase down a $5 or $8 million guy who's going to put up similar, maybe not, maybe better production, slightly better production. But again, we're dismissing everything about Yannick Ngakoue and saying that he gets no rush. That's not true. That he gets no. That he's not a pusher, that he doesn't motivate people, and that he doesn't break through the. That's not true. None of that is true. It's because he's available incredibly cheaply when free agency is over. There you go. 4 quarterback pressures after Sweat arrived, and this is a limited scope. 4 quarterback pressures and 2 sacks. That's better than what it was. Again, this is the team that was not doing this at the end of the year. I mean, at the end of the year, what they were doing at the beginning of the year, giving up 38 and 40 points a game. They were not doing that. So you have to count the numbers. You have to look at them. But again, Yannick Ngakoue probably comes back. He doesn't get $8 million a year again or $10 million a year again. He gets $1 or $2 million on a veteran minimum if he comes in. That's what matters. That's what matters. It's really not. Sweat had 4 pressures just in his second game. Right. And then, okay, yes, you're right. You guys are 100% right about everything. Okay. And yes, Yannick was terrible last season. You're 100% right. You got it, man. So, anyway, also, we have this right here. These are the team opponents per game. As you can see from this ranking, Chicago ranked 19th overall, 22.3 points per game. You knock 3 points a game off this. This is all this takes. You knock 3 points a game off of this, and guess what? You're right in between 6th and 7th overall on defense for last season. That's how much those points that we gave up at the beginning of the season mattered, and it was dramatic when you start to look at it in that context. Then all of those points mattered. Afterwards, you're giving up 17.2. That's good for 13, or not 13, for number 3 in the league in scoring defense for the last 13 games of the season. In the last 6 games of the season, it was 15.4, which means that you're the number 1 team. So the guy that you hated, these guys that you don't like, the guys that you're complaining about, yeah, they were the number 1 scoring defense for the last 6 games of the season, and the number 3 scoring defense for the last 13 games of the season when Montez Sweat came in. But I know they suck. I know. You know what I mean? Like, guys, the statistics still matter whether you like the person or not. And Broski, why am I in love with Yannick? I'm not. I'm in love with the fact that he's very inexpensive to get back on the roster, and it is my opinion that he's going to have something to prove. And will he get a lot of playing time? Maybe not, because I like DeMarcus Walker. I like what DeMarcus Walker did. Again, number 1 rushing defense. And if we have somebody who can spell and get a little bit of pressure, and somebody who's performed at 8.5 sacks per year, every year at least until this past year, and there was something different about the Chicago Bears that didn't have a defensive coordinator. There was something weird about the Chicago Bears that weren't ready to play the game. And the question is there a better option or better price? No, there's not. Or at least at this moment, there might be. At this moment there might be, but that's not going to last, because we don't have money. We don't have Where's $7 million left after you sign the rookie class, and after you've done everything. The Bears are walking into this with $8 million. The Bears are walking into this with $8 million left. They just signed a few to the futures contracts, so there's $8 million left. You're going to be able to sign him with maybe $2 million, and you'll have $6 million walking into the season. We took $10 million into the season and came out with $6 million at the end of the year. So we only spent $4 million during the season for emergency players. But this is a guy who could potentially change the outcome of games, and we can get him at one of those league minimums. There's no better deal that you can get at this point than that. And you can look at all the objections that there are, and you can look at all the people that are available, and we'll do that tomorrow. We'll actually look at the players, and you can tell me what's the better option. You know what I mean? Like, what's the better option? And Crimson, I think, gets it right. It would be settling for Yannick Ngakoue. but he's going to be the most viable and best unless there's a Khalil Herbert trade that we don't see coming that's about to come, where we can enhance the offensive or the defensive line with a trade like that. And we're going to look at the 53 man roster. It would probably be better to see something like that happen. So I don't know that we will, but again, I think he's on the radar. And by the way, Yannick Ngakoue, it might be pointed out, he's actually working out here in Chicago. He's living in Chicago, and I think that should be, and I'm not sure, but I think that should be evident that he kind of wants to be here and that he probably expects that he's going to come back on a league minimum contract when the timing is right. And he doesn't have to right now, but I don't know, you know. Personally, I'd rather throw Booker in the fire than pay Yannick again. I mean, I would too. I would like to see it, but I get the sense here that if you do too much, if you put too much on Austin Booker, I think he's going to crumble. No disrespect to him, because I think, I think he's got the potential to be a fantastic player, but you know, if he's not ready for it, and at 6'4", 240 pounds, like, he's going to have to gain some size. I don't know that he gains enough size to be really NFL ready. He's certainly not going to be an every down guy. And I mean, Yannick is not for, I mean, I guess for that point, but I would prefer the one thing, Crimson, that you always talk about: depth. You got to have depth, right? Well, if we go with a light roster because we don't want to do one person over the other because we want to get somebody more reps, that's not creating depth. That's just, going with the guy we like. So it would be better to have Yannick Ngakoue back in here, give him an opportunity to prove himself, if he will. I mean, if he won't, it's a minimum. You know what I mean? It's a minimum. And I look, I would love to see what Austin Booker can do, but if he's still undersized, he's going to perform like an undersized guy, and he's going to get pushed around by 350-pound offensive tackles. That's not what he's facing in college football. And Big 12. When you get outside of Oklahoma, what do you have? Oklahoma State. Um, there's a lot of holes in the Big 12, so I don't think that that's as elite a league, and I think that that's, he's going to have to learn a little bit. But and we're putting a lot into a, what is he, fourth round pick or fifth round pick? We're putting a lot into a fifth round pick. He's got to have it. He's got to pick his spots, and he's got to get better. And if he does, then, and by the way, I would love to see him thrown to the Wolves too. If he gets a lot of reps, that's cool because it'll be based on his ability. But also, we still need Yannick Ngakoue on the roster because you need some guy that can still do it. 6 foot. Okay. I saw that he was six. No, he's 6'5". He was actually 6'4.5" at the combine. He wasn't 6'6". He was 6'4.5", 240 pounds. So no, he's not 6'6", not yet. I mean, unless he continues growing. I mean, maybe he's growing like a big boy. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens. But anyway, so Chicago 19th overall um, in scoring. So we'll see whether or not this was, and look, I get the same thing. He was a steal, and a lot of people are saying that he would be a late first round pick going into next season with the defensive line. But I don't think none of that. I don't think any of that really. Look, I don't. That's speculation. That's with him having another season of growing and getting better. So we'll see whether or not he grows and gets better. If he does, and he gets some playing time, and he ends up being phenomenal, I'm going to be happy for it. But I mean, again, we need depth, or we don't need depth. So we'll see. All right, so our options are limited, and Clay's our best option. He had 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 17 pressures, playing 60% of the snaps. He's also great against the run. Isn't he also 36? And do we think he's going to get better at 36, going to 37 years old? So I don't think that. And by the way, I mean, we're splitting hairs. I don't give a shit which one of these guys is on the roster. Oxy Brodone has the hot take, though. The defensive talent coming out next year is going to be second to none, I'm hearing. But these are the top 10, since we're on it right now, the top 10 defensive prospects coming out in 2025, which is why the Chicago Bears are not really worried too much about this defensive line at this point. Honorable mention going out to Elijah Roberts, the edge rusher from SMU, but you have JT Tuimoloau, the edge from Ohio State, as number 10 guy. You've got Harold Perkins Jr., edge rusher from LSU. You've got Ben Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. Malachi Starks out of Georgia. You've got Nick Skirton, edge rusher from Texas A&M. Travis Hunter, cornerback from Colorado. Mason Graham, defensive line from Michigan. You've got Will Johnson, cornerback. You've got Deion Walker, defensive line from Kentucky, and James Pierce, the edge rusher out of Tennessee. So I don't think that they're very worried about where they are right now as much as what they can get in the draft next year. And if Austin Booker is as good as advertised, or even comes close to what we think he might be capable of, then adding him along with some of these guys then becomes really important. James Pierce here, listed at 6'5", 242, slightly bigger than Austin Booker, but not by much. It's scary that he's had a year to add more weight to his frame, and he's going to continue to grow. That's what's going to happen. He's going to grow. And again, Gordon, I started off, it's going to be a top 5 defense. I really think that. This is going to be a fantastic team. And it's going to be centered around Yannick Ngakoue, who will be the best player in the league next year. I love the fact that you won't let it go. I appreciate the fact that you will not let it go, man. I really do. I would rather spend all your money and go into debt to hire the 37-year-old. What the fuck? Pay the guy who's going to do the veteran minimum. And hey, if Kelly Campbell does the veteran minimum, I don't give a shit which one of them it is. I really don't give a shit. You care way more than I do about something that's going to be, oh, well, this guy had 7 sacks and this guy had 6 sacks, so he was worth $6 million more per year. That's silly. So, I mean, do what you think is right, man. Do what you think is right. Anyway, let's move on here, because now the Friends of the Park is going to fight for the lakefront. Now, when I put this up here, I'm putting this up kind of ironically, because take a moment to just gander at what this looks like and how much more green space there is that's available with the new Soldier Field, as opposed to the old Soldier Field. And the Friends of the Lake, the Friends of the Park, they're gonna fight. They're gonna fight because they don't want, the last thing we want is more green, because green is like when you put it on copper, that means that it's rotted. So gross, or I mean, whatever stupid reason these guys have for doing this stupid stuff. We just want to fight because we want to fight, bro. We just want to fight, free Palestine, or whatever the stupid shit people like this say. Like I don't understand them at all. You know what I mean? But they're not sure whether or not they're going to fight it or not. And look, the governor's already said this is a non-starter. But as expected, the new Dome Stadium on the lakefront, they're going to face a fight with Friends of the Park. The Sun-Times reported that the Friends of the Park says it's prepared to fight for the lakefront, although the group is not ready to say if it will include mounting a legal challenge to the Bears' lakefront stadiums, according to the paper. The comment comes from Jen Kilgore, in her first extended interview since the Bears unveiled the plan. And oh my God, I bet I'm willing to say that I bet if you read this, it's gonna be the dumbest interview that you've ever seen, for somebody saying, well, I mean, with all the problems going on, and and blah 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 blah, and like what about the homeless, and just wild shit. Just wild shit. So I'm going to be interested to see exactly what the argument is, and exactly what they're going to say uh, about what they really think is going to happen. So, but I would be watching this to see whether or not we get anything positive out of it. But let's move on, because we got more to cover, and this one is Not Yannick, oh my God. Roma Dunze says there's no limit to what the Bears offense can do with Caleb Williams at quarterback. He is a Caleb Maxey at this point, guys. You gotta understand here. The Bears have already been hard at work beefing up the offense with DeAndre Swift, with Keenan Allen. Um, Roma Dunze said this. With Caleb throwing the ball, there's so many different avenues the offense can explore, especially with the wide receiver core with such versatile receivers. There's no limit to what we can do. I'm super excited to dive into the playbook and unlock the master plan that they're going to have for us. Williams, of course, was the consensus number one overall pick. Odunze came in at number 9, but had 1,640 yards, 23 receptions of over 20 yards. This is a guy who goes up and gets the ball and can be a gigantic big player for this offense coming into this season. If we can give just a tiny bit of protection, a little bit more time, a little bit faster decision making from our quarterback position, then suddenly this team is a lot better than the sum of its parts. This is a great opportunity. So now let's get into the final piece for the day, and that is looking at the way too early 53-man roster and what it looks like. It's pretty much what you would expect it to be. Let's kick it off. So Caleb Williams obviously is at this point probably considered to be the starter. Tyson Bagent is going to be the primary backup. Brett Ripien will end up being on the practice squad, available to be called up at a moment's notice, and he'll be available as an emergency at all times now because they changed the league rules. Running back DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roshan Johnson, Travis Homer, and Kerry Blasingame. I don't know that Kerry Blasingame is going to be there. He is for right now, but I don't really know that they're going to use a fullback. I don't know if Shane Waldron's going to use a fullback at all. So Ian Wheeler probably makes the practice squad. If Chicago opts to cut Blasingame, they will save 1.6 million in cap space. So that'll be the difference if you're just desperate to hire Calais Campbell. You know what I mean? There you go. You got him. Tight end Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and Steven Carlson. And then I wouldn't rule out a reunion with veteran blocking tight end Mercedes Lewis. He's affordable and brings the needed value of blocking. And I think that is a possibility. Brendan Bates makes the practice squad. Mercedes Lewis still out there. Again, veteran minimum. But you only have so many veteran minimums. You'll have to make some moves. At wide receiver, you're going to have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, Tyler Scott, Dante Pettis, and Velus Jones Jr. The overall makeover of this positional group has seen in the short 2 years has been impressive. Last year, Moore was the crown jewel until they landed the number 1 overall pick this year. Allen brings a valuable veteran presence and is still highly productive at 32. Odunze was a match made in heaven for this offense and should be able to be paired with Williams for the next 8 to 10 years. Behind the top 3 names is a little more uncertainty. Chicago will hope that Scott takes a big leap in year 2. Jones Jr. should have additional value now that the return game will be more emphasized with the new kickoff rules. By the way, the kickoffs are going to look real weird next year. Man, oh man, oh man. I'm going to show you some videos of that pretty soon, and it's going to be wild what you see right there. Fun, I think. The Bears could opt to go with just 5 receivers if a 6 is needed. Pettis seems to be the front runner to make the roster. Colin Johnson and Asimba Webster, of course, make the practice squad. For the offensive line, you've got Braxton Jones, Tevin Jenkins, Ryan Bates, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright, Matt Pryor, Kieran Amagaje, Coleman Shelton, and Jatire Carter. This is the one group that's been glossed over a little bit in the offseason. There's no question that Poles has built one of the better pass-catching units in the league. With that said, the offensive line needs to take a step forward if they want Williams to be in the best position. Their moves at center should be an upgrade, but were underwhelming, and that's true. It was an upgrade, but that was the point. The depth has been improved, and ultimately, I don't see Larry Borum making the final roster. That, again, I would agree with that. He's been the worst performer so far on that offensive line at the tackle position over the last 3 years. And that would save $3.199 million. That actually gets you into some other prospect. Like maybe now you've got Calais Campbell coming around and Mercedes Lewis, or you can get whoever is available. I don't want to say any names at a veteran minimum. So versatility has been a big emphasis, and their depth seems to have that. Health, especially on the interior, will be the key. Doug Kramer and Jake Curran make the practice squad. At defensive end, you're going to have DeMarcus Walker, Montez Sweat, Austin Booker, and Jake Martin. And one area I expect the Bears to add more on the defensive line. It's possible they could end up banking on some random guy to re-sign and bounce back, but even then, this unit is not yet a strength. Sweat is the only thing keeping this unit from being a serious problem. Because of that, health will be vitally important to this defense. In a vacuum, Sweat and Walker are a solid starting duo. The depth behind them is a big question. So, Khalid Kareem and Dominique Robinson expected to be on the practice squad. For defensive tackles, Gervon Dexter, Andrew Billings, Zach Pickens, Byron Cowart, and Keith Randolph Jr. Oh shit, Calais Campbell's 38 years old. He's even 2 years older than I thought. Ain't that a bitch? We'll have to see how the next few weeks pan out when it comes to the post draft veteran cuts. But the only true upgrade would be Calais Campbell. I'm not sure the Bears want to travel down that road. For now, though, roll with the top three from last year, Cowart and a promising undrafted free agent, which is going to be Keith Randolph Jr. So we'll see what happens there. Again, depth is going to have to improve here, but we're going to have to make it through this season with what we have to get into the next draft where we're going to have a lot of picks and then we can really shore up that defense. So that's what's going to be expected to happen. Linebackers, Tremaine Edmonds, TJ Edwards, Jack Sanborn, Noah Sewell, and Amin Agbenamigma are going to be the backups. The Bears could choose to keep 6 at the position, which give Micah Baskerville the leg up right now, but he is on the practice squad as of this point. Cornerbacks, Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon, Tyreek Stevenson, Terrell Smith, Josh Blackwell, and Greg Stroman Jr. Of course, Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson are going to be the starters. Kyler Gordon, by the way, great player. Terrell Smith, they were there kind of just in case something happened with Jalen Johnson, I want to say. And then Jalen Jones, Reddy Stewart make the practice squad. Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hick, and Tarvarius Moore round out the safeties with Quindell Johnson going to the practice squad. I am speeding this up a little bit. We got kicker Cairo Santos, just really having a great, this guy's having a great career. Torrey Taylor, if his leg is as big as we think, then he's going to be a fantastic addition to the team. He's going to start pinning some people back. And long snapper Patrick Scales just re-signed, so we got him for a while. So that kicks off and ends the depth portion of the discussion. Hopefully, this team is much improved. And then, as far as Bears on X go, we don't really have anything today to get into too much. Not really a whole lot of stuff happening that would, in one way or another, affect anything. Just a kind of a down news day. Everybody wake. And by the way, my light just died. My light just died right before the show. It was fine. It's a little while ago. It was actually messed up the other day, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. It just seemed like it was too bright. And then I tried to turn it off. It wouldn't turn off. So I unplugged it and I plugged it back in, and now it won't start. So whatever. I'm gonna need a new Bleeves light. So thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you that you take the time to come check me out every day. Doesn't fall on deaf ears, but if you would, please, the best thing you can do to help me out, hit that like button. If you want to subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you want to hit the bell to be notified, I go live every day at 10:30 a.m. if you haven't watched before. And by the way, if you can, share me with your friends so that we get more people in here talking about the Chicago Bears and having a discussion. This is going to be a downtime in the market. I'm going to do the best I can to continue to provide you with information. We may start doing a little bit where we start covering what's going on with the White Sox. We might do a little bit with the Chicago Bears or Chicago Cubs. We might be covering a little bit of Blackhawk news just to kind of fill it up because we got a few days there's going to be not a lot happening during the summertime for the Chicago Bears. So we'll fill it in as we can. We'll make sure that we give you all the Bears news that we possibly can. And until then, we'll see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. So bear down. Have a great day.